Let's do Rex's panel. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to present this to everybody.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about Gainax slash Gaina slash Benton Films, maybe, probably not. Aoki Uru. I'm going to butcher a bunch of pronunciations during this panel. I'm
Well,
so excited.
I am excited for you to do it, and I don't know if I implied it heavily enough, but we are live. So
Awesome.
let's do this. I'm gonna turn my mic off and eat my tacos.
So, real quick disclaimer, there's no generative AI used in the making or research of this panel. Also, I will have this up again at the end of the panel, but while I was putting this together, I found a lot of new and breaking information that had me like, is that a real thing? And I know how weird people can get about like Gainax stuff. So I'm putting the sources right at the beginning of the presentation in case anybody wants to fact check me or argue with me after the panel's over. So yeah, it'll be good. Oh, you can also go to beyondelectricsheep.com and access this. My name is Rex Neighbors III. I run a blog that I don't update frequently enough called Beyond Electric Sheep. I also am more of an archivist these days. You can see my Internet Archive site right there. There's a lot of Gainax stuff on there, and I'm working on a addition to Beyond Electric Sheep that is a giant catalog with a lot of supplementary material about every piece of software that Gainax put out. It's been lot lot more difficult than I was expecting it to be. So I also did the Garzy's Wing panel at Anime Lockdown 2021, and at the last Anime Lockdown, I did the hentai panel. So probably know me from those. So let's get started with I don't have time. We have like 58 slides to get through, and I don't really have a lot of time to give a whole lot of background detail on Gainax. What you need to know up to this point is it was a group of very young and talented dudes who called themselves Daikon Film, and they did DIY anime and tokusatsu. Two of these guys wound up dropping out of college to open a sci-fi store called General Products, and that allowed them a lot of networking opportunities, which gave them the chance to make a movie called The Wings of Honneamise. And I'm going to butcher that pronunciation numerous times throughout this panel, so bear with me here. But they got to make that, and they founded Gainax as the production studio for the film, and then they just kept making stuff after that, or trying to anyway. So if you want to know more about their beginnings as a studio, and I do highly, highly recommend it, the Notenki Memoirs is by Yasuhiro Takeda is a really good firsthand document of what happened from his perspective, and also Sean O'Mara's Gainazine, also worth picking up. Also, if you want to dig a little further, Otaku no Video is an anime that they did that I'm hoping a lot of y'all are familiar with already. It's kind of like their fictionalized account of their founding. And also in the notes, I'll have more about where to get all this stuff if you don't already have it. I highly, highly recommend something that has enriched my experience researching Gainax a whole lot. Granted, I was already like pretty familiar with it, but there's a lot of parallels between what Gainax was doing, especially in their early days, and what the guys in the 80s DIY punk scenes were doing over here in America. I particularly want to point out Corporate Rock Sucks, The Rise and Fall of SST Records by Jim Ruland, because it's scary how similar the stuff that SST went through and did is to and functioned is to how Gainax functioned. Like there's so many parallels that a lot of the same issues that Gainax had, the SST guys also had. It's scary. So let's talk about the actual topic of the panel. So Gainax, the animation studio, was having a pretty rough time in the early 90s, but they were always kind of having a rough time due to bad business deals and a general lack of business acumen. but they were flourishing in the PC gaming space, and not just with Princess Maker like everyone always thinks. They did a Silent Mobius adventure game that was pretty successful. Here's a print ad from, I believe it was, I pulled this from Comptic. It's in the notes, but they like show it as the obvious follow up to Gunbuster and Nadia, which I thought was very interesting. And they even were able to offset some of the losses incurred with the production of Nadia with their PC game adaptation. They were able to lock up exclusive rights specifically for PC, but then the movie happened and they lost all that money and went further into debt. So I want to real quick also shout out Gaming Alexandria for making so many of scans of magazines from this period available to everyone on Internet Archive. I spend a lot of time going through this stuff and I have learned so much from it, particularly how people at the time were viewing Gainax in the early 90s. They were at this point mostly a software company, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. So their animators were just kind of, I went too far. Their animators were just kind of hanging out, and Toshio Okada wanted the company to leave anime entirely and just make video games. But Takami Akai, who was the creator of Princess Maker, and Yasuhiro Takeda, who wrote No Tinky Memoirs, they said nope because they wanted Hideaki Anno to have the chance to direct more anime. And they had a rough time trying to figure out exactly what they were going to do after Nadia. They made a little headway with a project called Olympia, but it stalled out completely. No Olympia, very quickly. So then they decided that they were going to attempt a sequel to The Wings of Honneamise. During that time, Okada not happy with these plans, and he bounces completely. No one's really upset about it. Takeda straight up calls him a hindrance to their company in the Notinki memoirs, but his wife, who also works at Gainax, winds up staying. So let's look at the staff for this Wings of Honneamise sequel real quick. So we don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking about these guys. You probably already know who they are, but I'll offer a brief overview. Hideaki Anno, this was during his what he considers his lost period. Specifically, he was not very happy with the direction the company was going with the video games. He wanted to keep making anime. He did, at the time, direct a video game, Cybernetic High School 3, which is basically a gunbuster trivia porn game. So, but that was his only, in his entire time with the company, his only involvement with PC games. And then Hiroyuki Imaga, we're gonna be talking a lot about him, but we haven't really mentioned him at this point. He had directed Wings of Honneamise and the Daikon shorts. He was coming off of Gundam War in the Pocket, which also featured Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, the character designer for most of Gainax's stuff. His style, at least for Western audiences at the time, and even now, I feel like Sadamoto's style is considered the Gainax house style. He was going to be chief animation director for this, and he did all the character designs and all of that. So, and then we had Takeshi Mori and Shoichi Masuo for assistant directors. Takeshi Mori was a storyboard artist on Nadia and Otaku no Video, but he's probably now best known for directing Vandred at Studio Gonzo. And he also storyboarded cutscenes for Lunar 2 at Studio Alex. Gainax and Studio Alex, there was a lot of overlap between them at this time. And Shoichi Masuo was a Gainax lifer, and he wound up working at Kara with Anno. There was another assistant director who's very important to Gainax, but kind of forgotten by history because a lot of his stuff got canceled. Kenji Tsuruta, who through researching Gainax, I have become a massive fan of over the last couple years. He's most famous for Spirit of Wonder, which is a manga he started making in 1986 but finished in 1994. And that got an OVA adaptation, not by Gainax, that came out over here back in the day on VHS by Anamego. They should get the rights again and re-release it, I think. Gainax was grooming him into being their next big company pillar. But as you can see on this, this is a snapshot from on Gainax's website circa 1997. Their basically official fan page for Kenji Tsuruta. It's very they're just straight up talking shit about him. It's really funny. They call him an artist with remarkably few creations to his credit. And I do want to point out that this isn't machine translation. This is pulled off of Gainax's official English language website from 1997. He They talk a lot of crap about him not making a whole lot of things, being hard to work with. They call him his nicknames, which are probably literal translations from Michael House. Artist of amazingly small quantity, and he who brings tears to the eyes of more editors than anyone else in Japan. Because of his dislike of work or his editors, he's had few creations. But the sense of transparency which his art has, combined with the unique science fiction sensibility which informs the worlds he creates, have earned him numerous devoted fans. So he is a very interesting guy. So there is a project that he worked on throughout most of his time in Gainax. He did do the Made in China 1994 CD-ROM, which is kind of like an art gallery slash point and click adventure. But he was working on a game that they were setting up to be their next big thing if Evangelion had not happened, called Shinbatsu. There's not a whole lot. This is one of those things I've been researching pretty heavily for, oh God, probably like 2 years now. And every time I Google it, it just pops up with things that I pulled and posts that I've made. So that's been fun. But Shinbatsu, they were setting this up to be a whole franchise. They were advertising it very heavily in their software catalogs up until we'll get to that part later, but they did it for years. This is a screenshot from a Sega Saturn magazine that did a full preview of it. Unseen 64 has an article about it, but they never did any translation or anything. Basically, what this game was supposed to be was, I don't want to call it a successor to Populous because it has way more in common with Black and White, which wouldn't come out for a pretty long time after this. But it is basically Populous, but the characters have a lot more free will, and essentially you're playing as a god who can only interact with them by messing with them, and you can beat them, you can bless them. There's a lot of things you can do. Shinbatsu means divine retribution, and the main like draw of this game was supposed to be apparently they're gonna have like full on like anime cutscenes that showcased the god character smiting the villagers. And they also announced a sequel to it pretty early on because this was supposed to be a Sega Saturn and PC 98 game. They announced a sequel to it pretty early on for the PlayStation called Shinbatsu Love Is What You Make of It. And it was supposed to be some sort of 3D action adventure dating sim. So we'll talk about more about what happened to this a little later. But while I have y'all, I want to show off some exclusive to this panel for now Shinbatsu concept art from some dojins that Kenji Tsuruta released in the 2000s that I obtained last year and have not scanned yet. So Lost Media fans, I hope you are recording this right now and taking snapshots to post on Twitter and not give me credit for it. Just kidding. It's pretty cool art. I highly recommend seeking these out. They're kind of hard to find, but they're pretty cheap when they pop up. I got both volumes of it from Tsuruga last year, and I think it cost me $20 total. So good stuff. So other staffers, while we're at it, Masamune Shiro of Ghost in the Shell fame did a lot of the mechanical design. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I don't know enough about him to have been able to find an actual picture of him. And when I had typed him into Google Images, it was popping up with like 3 or 4 different guys that didn't even look alike, and I didn't even try. So you can look at cool design that he did. The airplane from Aoki Uru, instead of looking at a picture of him that might not even be him. So he was doing a lot of freelance character and mechanical design around this time for stuff like the Landlock OVA, and he was working on the PS1 game Project Horndow, which is really neat. And also, too, working on this was Kazutaka Miyatake. He was a veteran of Studio Nue who designed the SDF-1 Macross, but he also had worked with Gainax prior to this. More specifically, he designed the Excellion from Gunbuster, which is really cool. So, other notables. Kazuya Tsurumaki was one of the other animation directors. He had joined Gainax during Nadia, and most recently, he's known for G-Quax, which I know is mildly controversial, I guess. I really like G-Quax. He also did FLCL, Gunbuster 2, the first half of End of Ava. He's basically Anno's protege. And also Satoshi Kon worked on this as well. He was only a part-timer. He couldn't join the company full-time because he was working on a manga project. Everyone told him, there's like, you can read his journals, they're in the panel notes. Everyone told him he was going to be a bad fit at Gainax, but he had a really good time working there, apparently. When things went south, he went straight into working on the JoJo's OVA too. So, but he did a lot of the background objects he worked on. So chairs and props and things of that nature. So production started in March 1992, right around the time that Okada bounced, without investors or a finished script or anything. What happened was Takami Akai told Takeda that he would like straight up sever all ties with him publicly, personally, ghost him, everything if they didn't start production by a certain date. So they just straight up they went right into it with not a whole lot of planning. So work moved very slowly because of this, and Gainax had stopped taking, specifically the animation portion of Gainax, had stopped taking commission work during this time. So they had to pay out of their savings and use money that were coming in from computer games to pay the staff salaries because they never wound up lining up any investors for this. They worked on it for about 16 months, and during those 16 months, they created 338 storyboards. These were created during a team retreat where they sat down to figure out what the movie was supposed to be. Sadamoto did most of these, but Anno specifically did the action sequences, and they basically storyboarded how they felt that the movie was going to go without a script. They never straight up had a script. I think it's a 13-page plot summary is what they wound up coming out with that they worked on. So, but yeah, 338 storyboards. They did 50 pages of character designs, 120 pages of mechanical designs, and there are links to all of these in the panel notes for you to go through after the presentation. Highly recommend doing it because all of the art at least is super cool. I think it's pretty neat. 30 pages of prop drawings, such as this cool, I think it's a guitar basically. Satoshi Kon probably made this. 90 line drawings of backgrounds. They're all super detailed and very lush. Like, they were really going hard on this despite everything. 21 pieces of concept and key art. And my favorite part, they did 370 color boards showing how scenes are colored. But so two of the art guys on this, Masanori Kikuchi and Hiroshi Sasaki, they were competing with each other throughout this whole project, and they did their own versions of each scene. So every scene got 2 color boards. It reminds me a whole lot of Tommy Wiseau shooting The Room with two cameras side by side. The only difference is The Room actually came out and this didn't. So, according to Takeda and the Notenki memoirs, motivation and momentum ground to a halt as Gainax failed to find investors for the film repeatedly. He wound up borrowing 8 million yen, roughly 80K in 1993 money, 54K in today money, from loan sharks to try and fund this movie, and it ruined his entire life. He wound up sending his wife, science fiction writer Hirosuga, who was also working at Gainax at the time on Goats and Diner, the PC Engine game, and its novelization in Dengeki PC Engine. He sent her off to live with her parents, and he moved into a company apartment, not the Gainax punk house that he mentions earlier in the Notenki memoirs that comes up in conversation about Gainax pretty often, but a different company apartment that was only 100 square foot and just had 3 bunk beds in it. He got locked into a vicious cycle of debt and wound up moving and out of that into what he describes in the Notenki memoirs as a tool shed. I believe I didn't put the details of that one in my notes, but I believe he says it's 50 square foot that he was living in. And eventually they just straight up couldn't pay staff salaries anymore. Company president Takeshi Sawamura wound up making the following announcement in July 1993. Making Aoki Uru is a major undertaking for Gainax, but we simply don't have enough money. The project will be put on hold indefinitely. Furthermore, in the future, there may be times when payroll checks won't be paid out due to lack of funds. Anyone who can't live with that needn't come into work tomorrow. We will pay everyone's salary up through next month, though. If you want to leave, there's no need for you to formally announce your resignation. But if you do intend to stay, please let us know. Dark stuff, and as you can imagine, a mass exodus of staff ensued, including everyone that they had hired specifically to work for this movie and most of the rest of the animation staff. In a later interview, Okada, even though he's not with the company, and Okada's kind of also an unreliable narrator at times, but during an interview later on America, Okada mentions that there's only, after this, 3 employees left in the animation division of Gainax, which is really wild. But yeah, the movie's canceled. And also, too, high-profile departure. Takami Akai leaves about a year later after this. He goes on to form Nine Lives and takes with him the Princess Maker franchise and a lucrative contract with Sony, who had locked down publishing and console exclusivity rights for Princess Maker 3, which was meant to be a PS1 launch game. So that's a whole lot of... I just glanced at the chat. Good stuff. I'm glad these are getting a reaction. I enjoyed these slides. But they wound up doing a bunch of PS1 games. The best known probably is a game called Cellophanes, which is kind of like a precursor to the Game Center CX / Retro Game Challenge games on Nintendo DS. Highly recommend checking those out. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, Ano goes out drinking with a friend who works for King Records, and he gets talked into making a new TV series while they're getting drunk. Due to the staff shortage, Okada, I already talked about that part, but due to the staff shortage, they have to outsource most of the show to Tatsunoko, and King Records straight up doesn't want Gainax involved. And in all honesty, neither does Ano at first. But he winds up changing his mind out of respect for his colleagues at the company, which, I mean, we'll get to it. It might have been a mistake on Ano's part. So, real quick, we've talked a whole lot about this movie already. And even though they didn't have a script, it's very obvious that they had to have had some sort of plot, or else they wouldn't have been able to make all those storyboards that they made. So let's talk about the story of Aoki Uru. So during an interview at Otakon 96, Okada described the plot to On America as basically just being streets of fire with airplanes. He also says in so many words that it sucks, and that Yamaga didn't even seem that interested, and that Yamaga lacked the emotion nor idea to make a new anime film. He claims that Pioneer at one point was going to fund it because they wanted to give Gainax money. They thought they were talented, and Yamaga went to the Pioneer offices, and basically his pitch was he rehashed Streets of Fire to them. He calls it a parody film at one point in the interview, and Okada claims that he wasn't forced out of the company. He left of his own volition because he didn't want to make Streets of Fire with airplanes. So something to think about. Also, I want to point out this is a picture of the main character from Aoki Uru, and the resemblance is uncanny. So I think there's some, and we'll circle back to this later. I think even though he can be a quite unreliable narrator, I think he was right about this possibly. So let's go to part two. By 1996, Gainax is essentially just a software company at this point. This is a scan from one of their catalogs, which all their catalogs during this time are mostly computer software with some brief mentions of Otaku no Video or Gunbuster coming out on video, CD, or DVD. And there's still this one, they're still pushing Shinbatsu pretty heavily, making all the CD-ROM software. They co-licensed Princess Maker out with an association with Nine Lives for console ports by external developers. Both of these versions, Gainax didn't really touch, and they reported to PC Engine CD-ROM and 3DO by Microcabin. They even licensed Princess Maker out to Takara to make a Super Nintendo version with no involvement from Gainax or Nine Lives, despite what most wikis about the game say. It was actually directed by Toshiko Izukawa, who also did most of the art, and he's best known for the game Iru for PS1. Fan translated a few years ago by Snowy Aria as They're Here. It's a weird one. Definitely check it out. Ano's TV show that he was making with King Records, though, it's a pretty big success and turns into a huge deal. And we're not going to really talk about it a whole lot because there's a lot of we don't need to talk Evangelion in this panel. We don't have time for that. So the important thing to know about Evangelion at this point in relation to Aoki Uru is that they didn't really see a whole lot of money at first from it. Ano got royalties from screenwriting and directing that he shared with other Gainax staff who were working on it. But like with Nadia, they locked down the computer software rights, so the software division was able to start making money off of CD-ROMs, and they were cranking them out quickly, making a lot of money that Ano states later because he wasn't privy to that information. He didn't realize they were bringing in money from Ava at all, and he's pretty bitter about it. But they didn't get the home console rights to it at all, so Sega wound up making some Ava games because they actually put money into the production committee and got the rights to the home console games. Gainax didn't have any money to throw into the production committee at all. So, yeah. While this is happening, off of the success of Ava, Aoki Uru never really leaves Yamaga's mind. One of the earliest mentions of them trying to make it again is on the official website for Princess Maker 3, the Nine Lives website. He did the opening sequence for that, and they give him a very, very brief interview, and he uses half of it to let the readers know that Gainax is hiring for Aoki Uru again as of October 30th, 1996. So Gainax winds up getting cut into Evangelion's profit sharing in 1997 through some legal stuff, and the company's financial situation changes dramatically overnight. They're flush with money. They pay back all of their debts. They ramp up hiring just in time for his and her circumstances, and Yamaga sees an opening for a project of his own. Guys, we're so back. So there's not a whole lot of information out there about the second phase of Aoki Uru. There's an On America interview with Yamaga in 1997 that they didn't publish until 1998, but he states that he's in control of the project now, and they're not changing the basic concept of the film at all, but he is making some slight changes. Um, they're all very interesting changes. Specifically, I wish I could see everyone's faces while I describe them because it gets pretty wild. Specifically, he states that the movie is going to be focused on speed and cool airplane stuff, and the dialogue is being written to test the boundaries of the Japanese language. He says he's going to use a ton of made up words, and a lot of them are going to be arranged in haikus. And he specifically mentions Quentin Tarantino as a inspiration for what he's trying to do with this movie. And also, it's not just a movie anymore. This is really, really important. It's a full on transmedia project consisting of this PS1 game from the previous slide, a 7-part serialized novel, which he talks about in the interview that I screenshot here. Um, he it is confirmed that he wrote at least 2 of these chapters for this novel. Also, there's going to be a manga by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, and then once that's done, and once they raise at least 2 billion yen, they're going to do an anime, which is also going to be part 8 of the novel that he is writing. On top of this, there's more. They're so confident. Well, I say Yamaga is so confident that this is going to be able to happen and that he's going to be able to pull this off that they take all of the previous production materials in their archives and they put them out on a CD called Project Uru. I put this on Internet Archive 2 years ago, by the way, and there's also screen caps. If you don't want to mess with that, there's screen caps of every slide of this, also on Internet Archive, so you can peruse all of this information yourself. They released all of the production materials from this first version of the movie on a CD-ROM because it doesn't matter anymore. Everyone can see it. They're making new stuff. They have a disgusting amount of money right now. They're on top of the world. They can do whatever they want. And on top of this, they also commissioned an instrumental theme for the movie by Jojuka, who's an electronic group from Japan who's probably best known for composing the music for Rez, the Sega game for Dreamcast and PS2. I highly recommend first thing after the panel listening to this on YouTube. It is a lot to process. There is a lot going on. It sounds like a Rob Zombie instrumental, like straight up, and not something that I would really associate with Gainax at all. There's a lot of it's a very busy sounding composition too. It's the kind of music that you would think about. It's almost too on the nose for a project like this. So anyway, obviously, none of this happened because Gainax's president Takashi Sawamura and the company accountant Yoshikatsu Iwasaki get arrested in 1999 for tax evasion because they were trying to hide the profits that were coming in from Evangelion. It's super duper messy. It's embarrassing for everyone involved. Sawamura winds up resigning. Yamaga winds up taking the company over. Projects are dialed back and canceled. No more Aoki Uru. Shinbatsu, goodbye Shinbatsu. It held on for, I forgot to mention, Shinbatsu started development in 1992. So it's been in development for like 7 years now. It's been cooking. Um, There's more information in the panel notes about what happened here. I am running ahead of time, but we don't have enough time to dive into the Gainax bankruptcy with the attention it deserves. But the only thing that actually there is, besides the soundtrack or the opening theme, rather, there is something from this era of Aoki Uru that does release to the public. Basically, out of nowhere, they announced a pack of mods for Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator in the year 2000. They just kind of dump them out, and the art and the packaging of this is very nice. But the actual mods themselves, there's video of them on YouTube. There, well, the first one anyway, because the second one, which is more interesting to me, it's impossible to find. I've been trying to track down a copy for several years now and have not found one yet. It's not online anywhere as far as I know. But this first one, like they left in the stock Microsoft Combat Simulator opening screen, yeah, the intro and like loading screens and stuff. It's just really kind of a budget production, but there's some interesting stuff about it. It's got some planes designed by some other people who at the time weren't very publicly associated with the project. Katsuhiro Otomo is the big one, but I'm more interested in Makoto Kobayashi. He's not the What's Michael Kobayashi, unfortunately, but the one that worked on Double Zeta Gundam and the Birth OVA. And also, there's another plane in here designed by Satomi Mikiuri. Tongue twisting time. I'm trying to rush through this too fast. Satomi Mikuria, who his best known work is Nora, which spawned the cult classic OVA Twinkle Nora Rock Me. So I have links to both the scans to this and the ISO and the notes if you want to try this out. After the panel, it's really interesting. Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator is kind of rough, but it's worth checking out. And also, there's a gallery on the disc made in Macromedia Director that you can pull up, and it's got like very detailed information about all of these planes. So the second one that came out right after, like, I think there was like a 3-month gap between Mod Pack 1 and Mod Pack 2. It supposedly has a full story board with a story mode with new art by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, but like I said, it's hard to find, so I can't confirm that that actually exists. But I would like to find it. I think it'd be pretty cool. So, with that being said, you'll never believe what happens. In 2013, the year's 2013, Gainax is still kind of floundering despite itself. They were in 2011, Panty Stocking and Garter Belt happened, and it was a huge hit, but all of those people pretty much left to make Studio Trigger. Out of nowhere, in 2013, Gainax drops a poster at Tokyo International Anime Fair teasing Aoki Uru. They formally re-announce it on their Facebook page a few months later, and then they show up to Con, announcing the official English title of Uru and Blue. They start showing up at a bunch of international film festivals over the next few years, trying to scrounge up funding. Takeda jumps back on as producer. They get a bunch of money from a Singaporean company. It's happening. This is happening this time. I promise we're going to make this movie. I do want to point out, too, they did a lengthy panel about it at a FanimeCon 2015 that I linked to Evan Minto, who presented Anime Burger Time at Anime Lockdown before. Put that together. This panel's really weird, and I think the most important thing to note about it, because they rehash a lot of the things that they had been saying pretty much dating back to 1993 about the movie, but Yamaga drops the claim that Takeda was the one who was obsessed with Streets of Fire, not him, and Okada was lying. It was all Takeda that was into Streets of Fire and gets like really weirdly defensive about it. So it's worth reading. Also, too, at this time, there's a lot of weirdness going on behind the scenes at Gainax. The Gainax elders who are still there start making spin-off companies and entering non-anime industries while using the Gainax name. And they also start selling off company resources. This is Gainax March. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but this is Yamaga specifically was involved with this, and it's Gainax's tomato store. Here's some of the tomato products that Gainax was selling at the store, including tomato juice. I want to note out too, these are special sugar tomatoes that you can apparently eat on your own, and they're supposedly real tasty. This is around 2016. We already know what other things were going on around this time. They sold off the rights to FLCL. They made a bunch of sequels without Gainax people being involved. It was real weird time that we all lived through semi recently. So that's why I'm kind of like buzzing through it. Yamaga announces a release date of 2018 for the pilot film, but they miss the date because of course they do. And then more legal trouble as Gainax's representative director Tomohiro Maki gets arrested for alleged indecent acts. Bad time. Also, too, I don't know if y'all remember how this was reported on at the time, but this was only 6 years ago, and there were a lot of people that didn't know their stuff, like trying to claim that it was Anno that got arrested for the alleged indecent acts, and it was a huge mess. Yamaga and Sadamoto split off into another company called Fukushima Gainax, later renamed to Gaina. They re-announced Uru and Blue again alongside Gunbuster 3. While Kara, after the arrest, Kara steps in alongside King Records, Studio Trigger, and a few other companies to run Gainax as basically a holding company to try and reunite the artists with the rights to their work when they can. Obviously, that is still a work in progress, but we're getting some good stuff out of it. Finally, new panty stocking and garter belts, pretty dope. But Yamaga still reportedly keeps chugging away at Uru and Blue. He writes an essay in 2022 that states that he's still working on it in his bio at the end. Meanwhile, while this is happening, did I insert a screenshot? Yes. Kara sues Gaina over the contract to specifically Aoki Uru, stating that they took control of the project under shady means. This is recent this happened. They win, and the copyright is completely canceled for Aoki Uru, so now nobody can work on it. We're done. Aoki Uru, stick a fork in it. Goodbye. So that being said, let's cap this off with some what's happening today with Gaina, Gainax, Kara, and Aoki Uru. And this is all very recent stuff too, so a lot of you are also probably familiar with it. Gainax publicly announces their bankruptcy and closure on a website via a statement by Yasuhiro Kamimura on June 7th, 2024, after filing with the Tokyo District Court on May 29th of that year. They finally got sued by a debt collection agency, and there was too much debt to pay back, and they decided it would be easier to just kill the company off for good. It also mentioned that many former management members remain shareholders of the company, and I think this was a power move by Anno to finally cut them out of messing with everything. And Kara puts out a statement the same day confirming all of this and thanks everyone involved with their efforts in getting the rights back to all the Gainax stuff. Gaina, however, does finally release something in 2024. Grindizer U, a remake of Go Nagai's UFO Robo Grindizer featuring character designs by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto. Now, this one's been really interesting. It has not come out officially in the US yet, and most of the funding came from Manga Productions, a company based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia that is a subsidiary of Mohammed bin Salman's Misk Foundation nonprofit. The show unavailable in the States, but it did air in Japan and Italy, but it is also the flagship anime for Shahid. I probably pronounced that wrong. But it's got a full Arabic dub and everything, and it basically people forgot about that one real quick. And then about a month ago, severing their final ties with Gainax, Gaina changes their name to Benton Film. This literally happened, I think, like, yeah, a month ago. But also, too, when that happened, they got bought out by Creators X, an AI company. So if for some reason, if for some reason Aoki Uru does wind up happening, or Gunbuster 3, you can be rest assured that it's gonna have a bunch of awful generative AI stuff going on. So yeah, Aoki Uru. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys had a fun time. I actually finished little bit earlier than I was expecting. We went through 58 panels of me talking about it. There's the QR code again. If you want to look through the panel notes, I will probably be adding to them over the weekend too, because as I was doing the panel, I was like, oh man, there's stuff that I meant to include in the explore further section that I forgot to do. So yeah, scan that QR code, get the panel notes, visit beyondelectricsheep.com. You can visit linktree / our neighbors III for more of my work. I am also on Blue Sky and YouTube. I forgot to put that there. But stick around. There's going to be more panels. Thanks again for watching this, and thanks JP for having me on.
Yeah.
I had a great time.
Did you want to end the call, or did you want to take questions? It's up to
I can
you.
take some questions.
Okay.
We got 15 minutes.
Yep.
So if anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Takes about 20 to 30 seconds for the stream to catch up, so we'll give it a couple seconds and see.
Awesome.
Seeing a lot of clapping. A lot of people like the panel.
Good. That makes me really happy. I love this story so much. Like, I like stories about guys trying to do stuff like this. And oh, that reminds me. If y'all want more stories like this, specifically, if you've never seen American Movie, you should watch American Movie like tonight. I think it's on Prime. Oh, okay. So question: Tomato Store closed. Their website isn't even up anymore. I don't remember exactly how long they last, but I went through Wayback Machine to see exactly when their website went down, and I think the Tomato Store might have only been open for 3 or 4 years. Would I want Uru and Blue now? I mean, it would be really funny if it came out. I would absolutely watch it. First chance I got. Yeah, so I guess my answer for that would be, yeah, I guess I would want it to come out because I think it'd be interesting to see, if nothing else. It kind of occupies the same space as something like Megalopolis, I feel, is a live action counterpart to this. I would also rather Olympia get made, and I also would like to see a documentary about the production because I just really enjoy, in all my research of Gainax, I love seeing them be passive aggressive to each other. Like nowadays, it's kind of taken a darker turn. That was the other thing I forgot to mention. A lot of information in this panel comes from I think it was a 5-part editorial that Anno wrote for a Japanese business website. I linked to it in the panel notes. But he is very bitter about the way all of the Gainax stuff went down, and he has a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily call it hate in his heart for them, but he is very like, he feels very disappointed and let down by his former friends, which is a bummer. But during the 90s and the 2000s, it's fun to watch them banter with each other a little bit. Okada and Yamaga, especially. There's a lot of interviews with Okada where he like takes snipes at Yamaga.
Oh, we've hit 100 viewers. I
Awesome.
know we did for a few seconds in the middle of the panel, but it looks like we just hit it again. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of questions, mostly just
Yeah.
comments. I guess that's probably an indication that you did a good job, that you answered all of the questions before they could be asked.
Oh, we got another one. What's my percentage chance of Blue Uru actually ever coming out? I don't think it's coming out. I was originally because I just found out about the copyright stuff, the lawsuit and the copyright just being like dissolved. I found out about that maybe 4 or 5 days ago. And I was preparing to end this panel with maybe one day it'll actually come out, but I think we've got a 0% chance now.
Yeah, I would agree. If nobody can legally make it, it's not going to happen. At least not through any official means.
I would though. I specifically want to see what they did with the PS1 game. The Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator stuff. I'm not sure if that's leftover assets from the PS1 game. It would make sense if it was, but I've never been able to find confirmation as to whether or not it was. But I would like to see what they did with the PS1 game. I'm sure there's probably I like I mentioned earlier in the panel, I comb through Japanese gaming magazines like quite a bit, especially like while I'm at work and stuff and just like watching TV with my wife. And I have yet to find anything about it other than like maybe like a brief blurb of like, oh hey, Gainax is making this game. I would love to see even just like one screenshot. So if you're out there, there's this cool thing that always happens after I do one of these where I'll get an email or something from someone like a day or two after the panel and they'll be like, "Oh hey, I have this thing you might be interested in." And it's like some cool thing that I never thought I would have found that I mentioned during the panel. So if you've got dev builds, if you've got screenshots or video of Aoki Uru PS1 or anything involving Shinbatsu, please let me know. Like honestly, especially Shinbatsu because that's the one I'm the most fascinated with. I like the art a lot. After Garzi's Wing, I think I mentioned it before. After the Garzi's Wing panel in 2021, a guy like emailed me the next day with a translation of Tomino's like author's note from the original thing, and then the game was found pretty quickly as well, which was really cool. And now the whole thing is being translated by the Idion,
Oh man.
who translates a lot of Tomino stuff. And you should check out their Patreon because it's really sick. I'll link to it somewhere because he's doing Wings of Reen right now, and it's a really interesting read. Mm. Okay, I saw another question. If the Gainax staff involved in Aoki Uru were on Jerry Springer, who would throw the first chair? Okada. Absolutely. Okada, oh, man. So Otenki Memoir is such a trip. Like the stories about Okada in there are absolutely wild. There's a sex scandal. There's a his wife when they're making the Daikon films. I'm gonna probably butcher this story because I'm going off of memory, but when they're making, I think it was Daikon film 3, he starts talking about how they need, I think it was like they need to have an explosion or a starship that looks like female genitalia because he thinks it'd be really cool. And like the animators are all like, they go to his wife, who they're just friends at the time, but she later winds up marrying Okada for some reason. He must have been like a really charming guy. But they're like, hey, you can control this guy really good. Make him leave us alone. So she's like, hey, it would be cool if you guys want to do something that's never actually been done before. You should scrap your stupid cartoon and host a shit eating contest.
Oh my god.
And Okada just shuts up. And every time like he throws out another idea, they just chant a shit eating contest at him for the rest of the production. Oh yeah, it was in Blue Blazes too. Another question. Did Yamaga issue a statement to counter Ano's statement about Gainax's sex scandal? I will have to look that up and get back to you because I didn't come across one. But I feel like he would have. Or he might have been quiet because a lot of his like public statements over the last couple of years have just been, "Hey guys, reminder, I'm making Aoki Uru. I promise." But I think a lot of that too. I didn't really mention this in the panel a lot. I think a lot of this stuff, a lot of Yamaga's like chest beating about how good the movie was going to be and how much stuff they were making around it. I think a lot of that was trying to get investors involved so he could get more money. I feel like that's what a lot of this comes down to.
That's what so much of the industry is. I mean, I can only speak of the American film industry, but I have been privy to calls that are total BS and end in somebody giving somebody $20,000 based on lies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did a stint a couple of years ago. I did a stint in academia working at on the marketing side of a university down here, and it was the same thing too. Like, it was bad.
You know?
Good times.
If I if I had less ethics, I would be rich.
Me too.
Well, you've got about 5 minutes. I feel like the chat's winded down. So I guess we could probably go to break.
Okay, yeah. Thanks again for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great. You always put on really interesting panels.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing what you come up with next if we do another convention. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I've got like a million ideas for more stories I want to tell, so it'll be good.
Well, you have a good rest of your night. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, you too.